when you get started tomorrow, each one of these lift areas, hoist areas, will have a basket like this. Okay? In that, you're going to have 2 cooling system hydrometers. One that's black on the top of the screen. Explain that later. Belt checking tool, which, tread depth, checking tread depth on tires. This one's got 2 tire pressure gauges, but I don't have any idea why. Air chuck, tire pressure, and pair channel locks, and a belt checking tool. Okay. So as we go through, I'll show you how to use all these tools. If you may or may not have noticed, we've installed all new work lights for you. See how good they are? Yeah. We will make you talk. They're good lights, aren't they? Yeah. They're $90 a piece. Okay? All right, so what I always do is remember that every car that's coming in as a paying customer, I don't care if it's the biggest POS that rolls through the door, it still gets fender covers. Because sometimes that's the best they can afford, that's it. And if you mark this sign out with your, your rodeo belt buckle, you scratch that car up, someone's gonna have to pay to get it fixed. Guess who it's not gonna be? Me. It'll be you, belt buckle, okay? Gets a fender cover, and sometimes you're gonna need 3. 1 in each fender and something in the front, especially if it's got kind of a big painted bumper fascia or something like that. Make sure that gets covered. Just trying to prevent you from having to pay somebody money. I always try to put these vehicles at a nice comfortable height. So I think the first thing on there, the key on thing, is tire pressure. Do I need to go over how to check tire pressure and how to put air in tires? Do you know how to take air out of the tire if you put too much in? Somebody knows how to do that? Brooks? Okay, this is an active participant role. You have to be able to nod. Yes or no, or speak. Reaching over. I like to have things kind of at a level I can, as long as something that pull hoist down, we should be all set from 2 hours ago. My roster. I'm done up already, guy. By the way, I number the hoist. So if I tell you to go to hoist number 1, that's 1, 2, 3, and I never count the 2 above ground ones, and then 4 or 5. Or if you count that, it'd be like 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, wherever we got here. So tread depth. This is one of these things that people, I think, they kind of try to basically cheat their way through it. It's not hard. Find the worst part of the tread of the tire. Okay, if it's in the inside or out towards the outside, don't care. Make sure that this is pushed all the way through. Put it down in the groove, push down on this. When you pull this out, go to the top of the chrome cylinder or sleeve, and then find the number that lines up the best with that. I would say that this is an 11. I'm gonna pass this around. I want you to see at the top of that, there's an 11 with a line. That's 11. That's 11 30 seconds. Do not reduce them down. You're gonna do all 4 wheels and tires. Because if it's like, one's 11 30 seconds and the other one is 1/4, that's going to confuse the customer. Don't confuse the customer. Okay, they have enough problems getting through life. Okay. Don't reduce them down. Leave them all in 30 seconds. So what would that 1/4 inch be in 30 seconds of an inch? 30 seconds. Okay. Don't reduce it down. Even though your tendency, because that's what you were taught in school to do that, don't do it here. Leave it alone. Okay. Find the 11. Tell it's right there. And every time you do another tire, you got to push that down and then redo it. I've got a much fancier one in my toolbox, but I don't want to run out of time this afternoon. I've got to get this done. What's next on my list?
We just did rear aware turn signals.
Okay. You're gonna have to get a volunteer. You will be my volunteer. Do you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Excellent. If you do not have a driver's license, do not ever move a customer car in or out. Ever. Try the 11 on there. You have that intersects the top sleeve. On top of that, see where the 11 is? That's right through that line. That's your mark. That's 11 30 seconds. Okay. Oh, I know. Somebody do talk about with the tires. So here, you look at tires for tire pressure. There's a blank, a slash, and a blank. So let's say you check the right front, and it's 30 psi. The door tag, the sticker on the door jamb, says 35. So it's 30 when you checked it with the gauge, and then you put it to 35, because that's what it says in the door jamb. That goes all the way around the car. But if you like to check the next one, it's 35, it's 35, 35. You don't have to do anything. All right, does that make sense? All 4 tires like that. And if it's got a spare that you can see and can get to, check the spare. Like, sometimes nothing worse than having a spare tire that you need and you go to use it as flat. All right, so we lower this down, and we're gonna do exterior lights. This is, you need a 3-person job for this. Forward, please. If you ever get this signal like this, shut it off. Count to 3. 1, 1,000. 2, 1,000. 3, 1,000. Put it back on. Go off. Okay. Jump in once. Let me know when it's low enough for you to get in. That's good. Get in. He's a good boy. He can climb up in there. Don't fall in. Okay. So, Brooks, get in the back of the car. Back of the truck. Go stand back there.
I got you. I didn't know if you meant like in the back.
No, I would have to get in the truck. All right. Here goes on front. Here we go. Ready? Listening in the driver. Trying to key yet? We need to do that today. Time's of the essence. You're either sitting on it, it's in the ignition, it's in the console, it's on the floor. Oh, it's right by your feet. It's amazing. Okay, so what you do is turn the key in the wrong position, but don't start it. Okay, turn left hand turn signal on. Okay, so do anything? Do anything back there? That would be bad, front and rear. Okay, turn to the right side. Anything there? Nope, bad. And I know, because I know I broke it on purpose. The running lamps, so you can shut the key off. So the running lamps are these, as you're turning the lights on, it's the first position before the headlights turn on. Those are called parking lights or running lamps, okay? So you can turn those on just by turning the switch once, for the lights. Over here. No, not that. There you go. There you go. Do we have lights on up here in the front? How about in the back? Thumbs up, what does that mean? Left hand, right side? You've got to be able to tell me that. You got to communicate, use your big words. Okay. Left rear, right rear, we're all good there. You can shut those off. Now go ahead and turn the headlights on. Are they on? Okay. We got low beams. You know how to turn the high beams on? Multi-function switch on the steering column. Anything out there at all? No. Alright, so get nothing. That's you guys working hard on headlights. Because you've done all my headlights. Ruined everything. Okay. So no low beam, no high beam on left or right, so that doesn't work. Make sure everything's shut off. Go ahead and hit the brakes. Brooks, did I tell you to come back up here? I give you one job.
I just asked you.
One job. Stay back until I tell you to come up. Where are we on our brake lights?
Everything's working.
Everything. Center one. Third brake light. 2 outers in the back. Okay, good. So all the brake lights work. All right, stay back there. Try the emergency flashers. Anything flash? This car's messed up. I did it. Okay. Shut that off. All right, you can go back now. All right, you can get out. Shut that off. You can come out for now. Wipers. So wipers, I would say that probably 90% of the cars that are out there today, the wipers are junk. They don't last very long, even though they're like $25 to $30, $35 a piece now. They're stupid expensive. They don't last but a year. Easiest way I tell people to check these: lift this up, run your finger along the edge. If it feels rough and sandpaper, you can feel like nicks and chunks and stuff, it's junk, okay? When in doubt, inform your group that you can hit the washer solvent and let it swing. It should wipe this entire half of the windshield off with one sweep. If it leaves streaks in it, it leaves low pockets in it, we can still see that film from that washer solvent, the wiper's no good. Okay, it's that simple. Streaks or low spots and stuff, it's no good. No bueno. Needs wipers. Same thing with the rear one. I've yet to ever have a car come in and had a good rear wiper on it. They're always bad. Okay. So usually get all the grit and stuff off of dirt roads and it ruins those things quickly. Questions on those? Sometimes you lift this up. More often than not, you lift this up and the thing's falling off of it. Hard to check that. Okay. All right. Next page. All right. So, brake fluid. So you can't see. Make sure you move around so you can. Move over here. Brake fluid's here. It's got a low. It's got a minimum, and a maximum level on it. It will say on there .3, .4, .5. So if you have to add to it, make sure that you're adding the correct fluid. DOT stands for Department of Transportation. .3 has a lower boiling point than .4, and .5 is higher than .3 and .4. But the oddball thing about .5, it's a glycol-based fluid. No, I take it back. It's a silicone-based fluid. .3, .4 are glycol-based fluid. Glycol-based fluids, if you get it in your eye, damages your cornea. Okay, so if you get any brake fluid in your eye, you go right to the sink, grab somebody or yell at me or whatever, and we take the eye wash station and we rinse your eyes out. And then we're going to send you to the hospital. They're going to put a contact lens in your eye and run several IV bags through your eye until you get all that stuff flushed out. So you got to be careful. That's why you wear your safety glasses, always. Okay, so brake fluid should be clear to amber in color. If you have a cut on your finger and you stick this in the brake fluid like I just did, it might sting. It's not like hydrochloric acid, which is going to melt your skin off. It's not that bad, but it's got a little bit of a kick to it. You'll feel it. And this brake fluid looks nice and clear, amber in color is fine. If it's brown, it looks nasty. What's happened is there's a lot of moisture's been collecting in it, and the brown comes from rust. It starts to rust all the brake lines and bores and pistons and stuff from the inside out. And that's how these brake lines go bad. If it's low, then add to it. Just make sure you're adding the right fluid into it. I've had customers put power steering fluid in them, oil in them, awful things like that. And you have to change everything out of the vehicle that has rubber parts in it. Questions on that? Okay, next. Keep me honest. All right, so engine oil. So we did the oil change yesterday. The nice thing about this particular vehicle, it's sat for 24 hours. It hasn't been run since, well, it may have got run this morning, I guess. I read my demo this morning. Pulled the oil out. Remember, the very first time you check it, it's never right, ever. Wipe everything off, redo it. Remember that that down there from like my thumbnail down, that's, you're gonna probably walk. It's gonna burn the motor up. From here to here is the safe operation area, and then right there where my thumbnail is, that's full. When these vehicles leave here, where do I want it? I want it full. That's what they're paying for. They're paying $60 or $80 for an oil change. I want it full. That's just the way it is. So anyway, if you put too much in it, let me know. We can get it out. But always make sure you put enough in it. The correct weight, the correct service rating, the correct amount. So here, oil's right there. The mark's down here. So what's the problem here? Probably a quarter to a third of the quart too much. Okay. If this is a customer car, we might try to get a little bit of this out of there. Shop car, I'm not really concerned about it. Shop car. All right. Next. And you all look nice and clean.
Transmission.
Okay. So transmission is the only fluid that you're going to have to actually operate the vehicle. You have to start the vehicle and operate it. Think about the dipstick on an automatic transmission. If it has one, and a lot of these cars have gotten rid of these now. You don't think the customers are smart enough to check their own transmission fluid, is it has a hot and a cold. What happens to fluids when they get hot? They expand, okay? So this thing's cold, okay? The engine has been running all day since this morning, second hour. Down there where my thumbnail is, that's the high for the fluid level when it's cold, like it is right now. Way up here is the full level when it's hot. Fully warmed up, you're driven the thing back and forth to Briarwood, you come back with it, you check it, and it's way up there. That's where it should be when it's hot. When it's cold, go out in the morning to check it with it running, it's gonna be way down there. And there's kind of a safe range in there, and there's a safe range up here. If you pull that out and it's brown and it smells like old burnt leaves, that means you've worked that transmission way too hard. Whether you tow horses around or backhoe or race car or whatever, you've worked that trans too hard and that fluid needs to be replaced. Filter needs to be replaced and replaced with good new fluid. Okay. So, jump back into things and start. It's way down there, so it's above the cold range, creeping up to where it's in that low end of the normal range. Okay, and like I said, I've already run this thing today, so I'm not really surprised. Okay, we can recheck this thing, and the fluid was nice and red. It was a nice pink red. See, it's right down there at the high level on cold. Kind of right what I expected. So I should let it run a little bit longer before I check it. It's something to fluid up to the train. That's the top. Here, it's sitting all day. It's not bad. Right? You got that? All right, you can shut it off. Thank you. Power steering next.
Yeah.
A lot of cars nowadays have electric car steering. So on your new form, it just says electronic power steering. So if you start looking for like a hydraulic reservoir or dipstick and things like that, and you can't find it, you just check off electronic power steering. So then if I have to explain to the customer why you didn't do anything for power steering, it's because it's got electric power steering, which is very common nowadays. Here's our reservoir, here's our dipstick for this. It doesn't, it's not running. Pull this out, wipe this off. And again, if this fluid looks brown, it's nasty, it smells bad. A lot of power steering systems actually had coolers on them, like their own little radiator, because they used to get hot. So I don't think this car does, but a lot of the Dodges and some of the Chevys do and stuff. It's, a lot of the manufacturers have those now. So here's an issue here. Here's our two dots, here, here, and here, in the good range. Where's it at? It's way up there. So what does that tell you? Way overfilled, okay? So on something like this, we might try to get some of this fluid out of there. Okay? Again, if it, add to there, so the good range is between the two holes that are drilled in it. That's your good range. And it's not, it's way up there. It's probably got half a quart too much on it. Okay? Not such a big deal on this because it's got this really long neck. It might be okay, but in a Ford, you steered it like that, it would go all over the place and make a huge mess. Okay, but the fluid looked good. It wasn't brown. It didn't smell bad. That kind of stuff. Next. So washer fluid's easy. Find out where the washer fluid is. Like this one here, it says washer fluid only. Don't put water in it. What does water do when it gets below 32? It freezes. It's awful to get one of these systems thawed out and get working again. Buy just regular washer solvent. Buy the good stuff. Spend more than $1. Washer solvent is nothing more than methanol. Methanol is an alcohol made out of what? Oak trees. They take oak chips, oak tree chips, and it says. And that's what they make methanol out of. Okay? So when you watch like a top alcohol fueling dragster, they're burning methanol, which is basically washer solvent. So like my cousin to run the funny car, he goes up to like Bay City or somewhere up that way and buys 55-gallon barrels of that. It just doesn't have the blue coloring in it. It's the same stuff you dump in here. So you just fill it. Okay, don't pour it all over the floor, just get it full. And the customer will be very happy. Next. Oh, rear differential. Okay. So go ahead and put the hoist up all the way, please. So we're gonna do the we'll get a key number 1, please. I've been just pushing hard all day. It's been busy all day. I've done one first hour, second hour, third hour just looking at them, fourth hour 70 log, and then this. You need a 3/8 ratchet and extension for this. All right, let's go back here. So for those of you that have never had me before, we call this test the Stinky Pinky test. Okay? This has, rear axle differential has what weight oil in it? I talked about this in lecture. 80W90, it's on the test. Don't come back to me later and say I didn't tell you that on the test, because I did, and there's video proof. Okay. The plug for this is right here. When you want to put this back in, you just need to snug it real good. You don't need to hang from the ratchet. It's not, as my father would say, it doesn't hold a wing on the airplane. The aircraft mechanic, you know. And you take this plug out, 3/8 drive ratchet and extension. Sometimes you can just get the ratchet in, depending. Sometimes the Jeep will have a rear plug or something in the back of it, just rubber. You got to pry it out with a screwdriver. If you take this plug out and the oil just runs out of it, it's full. Okay. If it doesn't come out, take your baby finger, doesn't matter which hand, put it in the hole and then turn that knuckle, the first one, and if you can touch the oil, it's fine. And as you can see with oil all over my finger, it's full. What's it smell like? Usually it smells like an old cow, like an old dog turd. Okay, so we call it Stinky Pinky. Good and snug, that's what I gotta do. All right, what's next?
Hydraulic clutch.
Okay, hydraulic clutch. So lower this down, everybody watch your heads. You got it on lower lock. I wish I could put a song for this. Change the whole, like a Christmas song. It's like, you know, it's like the old stuff. You did a lot of fun last night. This time. Sorry. Okay. Let's go here. Field trip. Go here to the blue Honda. Okay. Back in the old days, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they had real linkage for clutches. It's a clutch, it had a belt crank, it had levers, it had rods, it had all kinds of cool stuff. Very cool engineering stuff. And then in the 70s, latter 70s, that was too complicated for them, so they used a cable. Well, the problem with cables are they fray, they break. If they break, then you can't push the clutch in and you can't get the thing out of gear, so you just shut it off or pull the thing out of gear. That was problematic. Or they would fray and then you try to push the clutch in and let the clutch on, it would drag and it just didn't work right. So they went away from cables and then they went to hydraulics. So there's basically a second master cylinder up underneath the dash for the clutch pedal, and then there's what they call a slave cylinder down on the actual clutch fork that pushes the clutch to disengage it. That all operates on with brake fluid. It doesn't have hydraulic fluid in it, doesn't have engine oil in it, it's got regular brake fluid in it. On this Honda, there's your master cylinder, there's your clutch reservoir for your clutch. It's got brake fluid in it just like the other one. Okay, they just put it in two separate containers. You need to pull it, you need to check it, make sure it's full. There's a minimum and a maximum there for that. Open the thing up and look at that fluid. It should be clear to amber color, just like regular brake fluid. It's no different. Questions on that? The Mustang, the black one and the blue one, they're both stick shift cars, they pull the brake fluid off of the clutch right from the master cylinder, right from that reservoir. So they kind of combine two things into one. for the reservoir. So I have a separate one. Why Honda did it, I have no idea. I'm sure they have a reasoning behind it, but I don't know those people. I didn't design the car. Okay, what's next? Battery fluid. We can check it on this. So now battery fluid is one of those kinds of things you absolutely, positively, 100% have to have glasses on. Safety glasses, not on top of your hat. Those do you no good. If you get a battery that is maintenance free, that you can't, you know, the top of it's all sealed, like this one. This one's open. You can get one open too. A lot of times it's just flat across the top. That's called a maintenance free battery. Just write maintenance free on the top of it. Okay? So you can tell that this screwdriver has had acid on it before, because what has it done to all the chrome plating? It's eating it off. Okay. So when you pry these covers off carefully, what you will find is the electrolyte in there. The electrolyte is a combination of distilled water and sulfuric acid. It's about 36% sulfuric acid and about 64% water, distilled water. When you look down in these holes, there are 6 cells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, each producing about 2.1 volts-ish. 2.1 times 6 is what? 12.6. Okay, so it's not a 12 volt battery, it's a 12.6 volt battery. Okay. When you look down inside of there, you can see the electrolyte. It should be about 1/4 inch above the plates. You'll see the plates all stacked up next to each other. If you look down inside of it, you don't see anything. You just see the plates and everything's dry. You need to put distilled water back in it. We have a tool for that. This doesn't have electrolyte in it, it does have just distilled water in it. And when you push down on this, water will come out. For a little bit at a time, keep on doing that until you start to see it come up above those plates again. The acid's heavy. It's got a heavier viscosity, or not viscosity, but specific gravity, and it sinks. So you just have to add water back to it, distilled water. So you check those all 6. If it's maintenance free, you just cover it up and say it's maintenance free. If you get this in your eyes, rush to the sink, and we will help you. Super, super careful. I had a kid that ended up in the hospital. He cleaned the terminals out of the battery. He had glasses on. And it was on a truck. And he blew across the battery to blow all the stuff off. And the way it hit, it rolled back under his glasses and got in his eyes. And he was like, oh my God, and it burned like bad. And I literally grabbed him by the shirt and I drug him to the sink and I put his head under the water and I started pouring the stuff in his eyes. And he went to the hospital and they put like a contact lens in his eye with a hose on it and they flushed his eye out for like 2 hours. 3 hours. Both eyes. Yes, I had to write a report. Next. Oh, back over to the truck. Radiators are something you have to respect. What does water boil at in Fahrenheit degrees? 212. What about Celsius? 100. So, who can tell me what happens if we take this cooling system and we put it under pressure? Every time we put this under 1 psi of pressure, it increases the boiling point by 3 degrees. So let's say this is a 15-pound cap. 15 times 3 is what? 45. 45 plus 212 is what? 257, okay? So now the coolant in here won't even begin to boil until 257. Now, if you take that radiator cap off when it's at 250 degrees, all that liquid instantly turns into what? A gas. And if any part of your body is in the way of that gas, it's gonna melt. You're gonna burn it off, okay? So, walk up to a car, you think it's hot, grab the top radiator hose, which in this case is right here, without the car running, and then feel it. If you can't grab it and squish it easily, don't open the radiator. And you're asking me, you're asking Mr. Ross, couldn't do it. I had, when I was your age, like just out of high school, like the end of my senior year, going into college, my gold 67 Chevelle, I put a fresh motor in it. It was hot. Engine was super hot. And that particular radiator, that water pump, all water pumps now have kind of a, like a ring on the bottom to hold the radiator hose on with a clamp. Early water pumps did. So I backed the thing in the garage, I shut it off, it wasn't running. and I reached in to get the dipstick and dipstick 2 because I'd taken it out of my other car because it was on order. And just as I did that, the lower radiator hose came off the water pump, okay, and it was hot. So I turned, I was gonna get hit, and it hit my arm, basically the top of my shoulder to my elbow. And all the skin from the top of my shoulder to my elbow slid down because it all just got burned and slid down. This is like 10 to 12 at night. So I immediately ran to the hose, cooled it off with water for a while, locked the garage up because, I live in Wayne, drove home, a couple blocks away, woke my parents up. Now it's after midnight. Woke them up, said, you gotta take me to the hospital, and I covered it up with a towel, dish towel. And so my dad, like, what? So you gotta take me to the hospital. So anyway, I showed my dad, and he was like, what the did you do to your arm? He could fill in the blank. I explained it to him. My mom saw it, she freaked out. Off to Indianapolis Hospital, and then I waited probably half hour, 45 minutes to get with that person that kind of checks you in. And whatever, 8:20 after my clock. Anyways, so you go into the kind of the check-in person, and then I showed her what I had done. She's like, oh my God, come with me. So I got to circumvent a bunch of people. It's kind of cool. And you'd think that, I kind of thought, well, they're going to do something to all the skin because it's all wound up, piled up like an old elephant or something there. And no, they don't. They just get a stainless steel bowl and they take a pair of scissors and they cut it off and they throw it away because it's just junk. Okay. And then, so what I had was like a really, really severe second-degree burn. You lose most of the skin, but I didn't lose any muscle. I got right to that razor edge. Where if you lose all the skin and you just have the exposed muscle, then they start finding other places in your body to take the skin from and graft it on there. So I was that close to that. So IV antibiotics that night. They kept me overnight, and to look at it today, you could hardly tell. Looks actually pretty good.
But it lets you keep your skin?
They'll let me keep my skin. Yeah, because I'm not even going to go into where they take your skin from to put it there. If you have an injury like that, places that you don't normally see. Okay. So anyway. And I was working for the cylinder head company at the time, and they're like, well, they're like, you can't work. I'm like, well, I mean, I can't work. But they said, if that gets infected, you'll lose your arm at the shoulder. Because, you got to cut it, So I'm like, okay. So I ended up taking a whole week's worth off of work until it started to kind of grow back, and then I was able to go back to work, all wrapped up. Yeah. So this is what you do. You walk up to a car that you think is kind of warm, take a shop rate or two, fold it once, twice, and then put it over the radiator cap. So a lot of times when you turn the cap, it'll start to come out and it'll burn your hand here. This will prevent that. Okay, you want to wet it a little bit right in the water. Turn this a little bit, and it will go so far and it's going to lock. Okay, and then you have to get it off completely. You have to push down on it again, and then turn it the rest of the way, like that. Right? Be respectful of these things. They will bite. I've been bit bad. And then it's bad because after a while it like blisters and they debride it because they cut it all off, cut all those things off. It's awful. Okay, this antifreeze in here is red. This is propylene glycol, Propyleneglycol. You'll have a spelling test when you do cooling system. You'll know how to spell all those. Get a 3x5 card. Green and black. Which one do you think you use for the red antifreeze?
Green one.
Green, of course. Okay, because it makes perfect sense. The other antifreeze that you're going to work with is ethylene glycol, Ethylene. That is green in color. So you would think that you go green with green. No, but I didn't make the tool. I just teach it. Okay. You need to fill this. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 discs in here. These are very simple to use. You just have to count the number of discs that float. And then there's a chart on there for how many discs that float. And then there's a chart for the freezing point, both Fahrenheit and Celsius. I want both. Okay. Put this in the antifreeze. Fill this up. If you have a disc that can't decide whether or not it wants to float, you don't count it. It's like this morning, the blue disc didn't really think like it wanted to float, so I didn't count it. Now it's been run and stirred up a little bit. So you got all 5 discs to float. So you push that back in there. And if I go here and look at 5 discs are negative 50 Fahrenheit, negative 46 degrees Celsius. That's real temperature, not wind chill. Wind chill has no effect on your car, just has an effect on you and your skin. Okay. So do we ever get to negative 50 Fahrenheit here? Never. Okay. So you're fine. What's next? Oh, belts. We just did that. Okay. So now, back in the old days, this has got a ribbed or serpentine belt on it. The early belts like this used to deteriorate. They had more real rubber in them, and the rubber would dry out and it would crack, and it would crack and it would come apart, and it'd dry out and chunks would fly off and stuff. The newer belts don't do that, but they do wear out. So that's what this little orange tool is for. You put this in the groove of the belt, okay? And then you run your finger across the top of it. If you can still feel this, that means the belt is still okay. If you put this in and you run your finger across and you can't finish, like this thing disappeared in there, you know that the belt is worn out. Even though it might look perfectly fine, it tells you that the belt's worn out. So what happens is when the belt is brand new, the V is pretty tight. So when you put that orange thing in the top, it sticks above it. As the belt wears out, it does this, the grooves, and then that thing drops down inside of there. And then that's why you can't feel it. Does that make sense to you? If you get confused about that later, I put the instructions for it in the basket, or you can just ask me, what? If I can feel this, is it good or bad? I don't remember. And I'll just remind you. So find a spot and make sure that there's nobody in the car, nobody on the key that they're gonna start it with your fingers in here, because you don't wanna be losing stuff. It's bad. So you just stick that thing in there anywhere, doesn't matter where. And just run your finger across, and I can feel this one, so that's still good. We're good to go there. Put it back in the basket. Hoses are next.
Yeah.
So hoses, a couple things about hoses. That's what the nice thing about your light. If you're working on a car that has a lot of oil leaks, valve cover leaks, intake leaks, oil pan, whatever, and you see there's a lot of oil around this thing constantly, oil damages rubber parts, always. So when it gets on the radiator hoses, you'll feel the hose and it'll feel kind of spongy and kind of nasty, and there's kind of oil on it, that hose is no good. If it feels spongy, like an old wet sponge under the sink, it's no good. Okay? It happens more in the lower hose than the upper one, because the oil tends to be down there, drops down there. This one feels okay. There's 4 hoses for sure that you have to check. The upper radiator hose, and you always check with the light to make sure at the connections where it connects to the radiator or the engine that it's not leaking antifreeze there. Bottom radiator hose is going to be on the opposite side. So it's starting to feel a little okay. And then you got your 2 heater hoses. So anyway, you, come here. What's wrong with that hose right there?
Got a gash.
That gash is, plural. Okay, so there's supposed to be a little bracket that holds this heater hose here. It's been gone for years. So when kids R&R that, when they put it together wrong, it ends up rubbing against this idler pulley, and it puts grooves in it. I'm surprised this thing hasn't blown out yet. So, you gotta check for things like that. And then the hose feels good, the clamp's not on far enough. Could be a little bit further on. And then I also check for the hose way back here at the firewall. These are the heater hoses where it goes in and out of the heater cord to give you heat inside the car on a cold morning like today. Those look okay. The other place that you want to check is go inside the car. Pull the carpet back. Feel behind the carpet. Seems odd. Why would you do that? What are we checking for? If I pull the carpet back and I feel the insulation that's wet, it smells like antifreeze, what does that tell you about the heater cord? It leaks. Okay, and usually going to tell that first by the windshield, because the windshield's going to get all like, you're driving down the road and headlights are coming at you, get that, that kind of blinds you. You're going to get this haze. It's something which is like the haze of a rainbow. Okay? And you're like, that seems odd. And then you clean the windshield, and then 3 or 4 days later, the haze is back again. So if you actually take your fingers, wipe that haze off and taste it, and if it tastes sweet, that's antifreeze. If it's got antifreeze, green antifreeze, then it tastes sweet. That's what the other thing glycol tastes like. It's sweet. Don't drink it, you'll die. You can just taste it with your fingers, it's fine. I mean, don't go up and lick the windshield. It's just a tiny bit. You're not drinking like a 16-ounce glass of it. You know? Yeah. Just don't go out there and drink a gallon of the stuff. Okay? All right, what's next on the list?
Total.
The air cleaner? Okay, so air cleaners are always special, okay? I've talked about this before. When you open this air cleaner up, sometimes there's surprises. Like animals. Like I've opened up air cleaners here and they've been entirely full right up to the air cleaner with dog food. Or birdseed. Or nuts. Like walnuts, things like that. I've had mouse nests in them before, chipmunks, all kinds of crazy things, okay? As long as that was put in right. Oh, look, a bolt. The air cleaner, when you check an air cleaner, you hold it up to the light. If you can't see light coming through it, it's no good. It needs to be replaced. And we'll notify the customer. Sometimes the customer wants us to get that. If that's going to happen, I'm going to check it during second hour. You have the air cleaner here by the end of the day. And then look inside the air cleaner box because you never know what you're going to find in there. If it's moving and squirming, okay, just if you want to kill it, go ahead. I don't care. Or tell somebody about it. Like it's a big mouse nest, and sometimes the nest is still moving.
Hey, but though, you have to like clean it out. So if there's like nasty stuff in that return.
Yeah, we just put on gloves if you want, and then we'll take it outside. We'll take the thing all apart, take it out. Special thing here. This particular thing has a mass airflow sensor on it, which measures the quantity of air, and it's got an air temperature sensor. A lot of times when people check air cleaners, they have to unplug these. If you forget to plug these back in, it instantly throws a code, puts the check engine light on, and the car's coming back. Just make sure all that stuff gets plugged in. If you forget to do that, and then you're like, oh my God, I ran the car, and then I plugged them in, let me know, and we can delete the codes pretty quickly before the car leaves. So they don't have to come back and complain about how the check engine light's on. Okay, what's next? We did all the oil change stuff before. Done. Okay, so I'm going to stop because I want to get you guys good shop cars back in and stuff. I'm going to do the last page tomorrow, and it'll take me like 10 minutes to do the last page, and then I'm going to put you in your groups, and then let you practice on a car tomorrow, which you will get credit for. Okay. So last page tomorrow, I kind of finished what I did yesterday, this morning. So make sure this is down, get all the other shop cars in here, and we'll call it done for the day.